Rome in 37 AD. The glory of Augustus had faded under the somber reign of Tiberius. The mighty empire, forged by the hands of its first emperor, now stood at a fateful crossroads. Tiberius, an unwilling successor, left behind a Rome steeped in suspicion and division, marked by court intrigues and family tragedies. Upon his death, the Roman people yearned for a savior, new emperor who could restore the golden age of Pax Romana. That man was Caligula, a young man carrying the blood of Germanicus and Augustus. But beneath his promising smile lay a dark destiny. Welcome to a new chapter in Rome's history. The journey of Caligula, the third emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, better known as Caligula, was born in 12 AD, the son of Germanicus and Agrippina the Elder. He bore the blood of royalty, with his great-grandfather being Augustus and his father a beloved general adored by the Roman people. The name Caligula, meaning little boot, came from his childhood, when young Gaius would wear a miniature soldier's uniform and accompany his father on military campaigns. The soldiers adored him, treating him as the legion's mascot. But Caligula's childhood was not all laughter. In 19 AD, Germanicus died under mysterious circumstances, suspected of being poisoned on Tiberius's orders. Caligula's mother, Agrippina, and his two older brothers were exiled, meeting tragic ends. Caligula grew up in fear, witnessing his family crumble under the cruel hand of the imperial court. In 31 AD, Caligula was summoned by Tiberius to the island of Capri, where he lived under strict surveillance. Capri was not just a retreat, it was a palace of decadence and intrigue. Here, Caligula learned to conceal his emotions, surviving amidst enemies. When Tiberius died in 37 AD, Caligula, at the age of 24, was hailed by the army and the people. He quickly eliminated Gemellus, his co-heir, to secure sole control of the throne. The Roman people, weary of Tiberius's harsh rule, placed their trust in this young emperor. Caligula began his reign with promising policies. He lowered taxes, granted amnesty to prisoners, and organized lavish festivals. The Senate, long disregarded by Tiberius, was restored to power. Rome seemed poised to enter a new era, but that light would soon be swallowed by darkness. Caligula's early days were filled with hope, but a mysterious illness would change everything, plunging Rome into a nightmare no one could have foreseen. Would this young emperor continue to bring light, or would darkness engulf the empire? Let's explore the darkest chapter of his reign. Rome in 37 AD. The twilight of Pax Romana still lingered over the eternal city. Caligula, the young emperor who had just ascended the throne, brought new hope to the people after the grim years under Tiberius. His first months were a dream. Vibrant festivals, reduced taxes, and the Senate restored to power. The people loved him, calling him the son of Germanicus, the one who would carry forward Augustus's legacy. But that joy lasted only a few months. A mysterious illness changed everything, dragging Rome into a nightmare no one could have anticipated. This is the darkest chapter of Caligula's reign, where the light of hope was consumed by the darkness of madness and cruelty. Just months after taking the throne, in late 37 AD, Caligula suddenly fell ill. Some historians suggest he suffered from a high fever. Others suspect epilepsy or even poisoning. Rome held its breath, praying for the young emperor's recovery. When Caligula recovered, the people rejoiced, but their joy quickly turned to dread. The man who returned from the brink of death was no longer the Caligula of old. His personality changed dramatically. From affable, he became cruel. From intelligent, he turned eccentric. Some modern scholars believe he may have suffered from a mental illness, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, while others argue that his madness was exaggerated by later historians like Suetonius and Cassius Dio to tarnish his image. Whatever the truth, Caligula's reign from this point onward descended into unprecedented chaos. Caligula's controversial actions began to shake Rome to its core. He declared himself a living god, demanding worship and ordering temples built in his honor. He appeared in the garb of gods like Jupiter and Apollo, even commanding that his statue be placed in temples, including in Jerusalem, sparking outrage among the Jewish population. A famous story, though possibly a rumor, claims he appointed his horse Incitatus as a senator. Some historians argue this was merely a mocking gesture to humiliate the Senate, but the tale became a symbol of Caligula's madness in the eyes of posterity. He also hosted extravagant feasts, squandered Rome's treasury, and built impractical projects, like a massive floating bridge across the Bay of Baiae, just to prove he could achieve the impossible. But his eccentricity was only the surface. Caligula's cruelty was truly terrifying. He ordered the execution or confiscation of property of numerous senators and nobles without trial, simply on suspicion of betrayal. A famous quote attributed to him is, "I wish the Roman people had but one neck so I could sever it." Though possibly apocryphal, it reflects the climate of fear that gripped Rome. He forced senators to attend bizarre feasts where they were humiliated or witnessed the execution of loved ones. Caligula showed no mercy, no forgiveness, and his obsession with power grew ever stronger. He once declared, "I have the right to do anything to anyone." This brutality not only horrified the aristocracy, but also eroded the loyalty of the people who had once adored him. Caligula's family life was equally turbulent, contributing to the chaotic image of his reign. He was deeply attached to his sister Drusilla, and after her death in 38 AD, he declared her a goddess, forcing the people to worship her. Rumors of an incestuous relationship between them circulated, though these may have been slander from his enemies. However, Caligula turned against his other sisters, Agrippina the Younger, the future mother of Nero, and Julia Livilla, suspecting them of plotting against him. Both were exiled, their properties confiscated, and the imperial family fell into disarray. These family tragedies were a testament to Caligula's unstable mind, a man who craved familial love yet was willing to destroy it to protect his throne. In terms of foreign policy and military endeavors, Caligula's reign was a series of infamous failures. He harbored ambitions to expand the empire, particularly in Germania and Britannia, but these campaigns yielded no results. A notorious story recounts how he led his army to the shores of Britain, only to order his soldiers to attack the sea god Neptune and collect seashells as spoils of war. This act was ridiculed as a sign of madness, though some scholars suggest it may have been a punishment for his troops' refusal to cross the sea. Nevertheless, he did strengthen Rome's eastern borders and maintain stability in provinces like Egypt and Syria. However, his extravagance in campaigns and festivals drained Rome's treasury. He raised taxes, seized assets, and even forced citizens to contribute to his coffers, fueling growing discontent. Caligula's reign, which began as a beacon of hope, became Rome's nightmare. His cruelty, eccentricity, and wastefulness not only destabilized the empire but also multiplied his enemies. The aristocracy, the Senate, and even the Praetorian Guardancy, his supporters, began secretly plotting against him. A conspiracy to assassinate him was brewing, and Caligula's final days were near. Could Rome escape this darkness? Or would his reign drag the entire empire into the abyss? Let's await the next chapter, where we uncover Caligula's tragic end and the rise of Claudius. Caligula turned Rome into an arena of fear. But would his death bring light to the empire? Let's witness the fateful moment when a conspiracy ends his reign, paving the way for an unexpected successor. Rome in 41 AD. The eternal city was gripped by fear and discontent. Caligula, the emperor once hoped to restore the golden age of Pax Romana, had become the empire's nightmare. His cruelty, eccentricity, and extravagance turned Rome into a battleground of intrigue and hatred. The people, who once cherished him for the name of Germanicus, now whispered curses. The Senate, which had hoped for a new era, trembled before his wrath. And the Praetorian Guard, once sworn to protect the throne, began to plot in secret. Caligula's darkness had loomed over Rome for too long, and his end was approaching. This is the final chapter of Caligula's reign, a tragic conclusion and a legacy steeped in controversy. After 4 years of rule, Caligula had amassed too many enemies. His cruelty extended beyond the aristocracy to the common people. He raised taxes to fund his lavish spending, confiscated the wealth of the rich, and even forced citizens to contribute to his extravagant projects. A famous anecdote recounts how he held a royal auction, selling his own possessions at exorbitant prices, forcing senators to buy them under threat of execution. His self-proclamation as a living god further fueled outrage. He ordered his statue placed in temples, including in Jerusalem, sparking protests from the Jewish population. These actions not only alienated the people but also humiliated the aristocracy and the military. A conspiracy to assassinate him began to take shape, led by Cassius Chaerea, a commander of the Praetorian Guard. Cassius Chaerea, once loyal to Caligula, became his bitter enemy. He felt insulted by Caligula's cruel jests, as the emperor often mocked Chaerea's high-pitched voice, calling him weak. Alongside Chaerea were other Praetorian Guard members and several senators, all determined to end this chaotic reign. They plotted in secret, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment came on January 24, 41 AD. Caligula was attending a festival at Palatine Hill, watching theatrical performances. As he left the stands to pass through a narrow corridor, Chaerea and his accomplices ambushed him. They stabbed Caligula dozens of times, giving him no chance to fight back. In the ensuing chaos, his wife, Malonia Caesonia, and young daughter, Julia Drusilla, were also killed. Caligula's death marked the end of a tragic reign, but it also opened a new chapter for Rome. Caligula's death plunged the city into chaos. Some feared the Senate would restore the Republic, while others sought a new emperor. The Praetorian Guard acted swiftly, searching for Claudius, Caligula's uncle, who had been overlooked due to his disabilities and was never considered a candidate for the throne. Claudius, then 50 years old, was hiding behind a curtain in the palace when he was found. The Praetorian Guard declared him emperor, presenting him to the army and the people. The Senate, though initially resistant, eventually accepted him. This event marked the beginning of Claudius's reign, a period that would bring temporary stability to Rome after the chaotic years under Caligula. Caligula's legacy is a subject of intense debate. To ancient historians like Suetonius and Cassius Dio, he was a mad tyrant, a cruel ruler who plunged Rome into darkness. Stories of his eccentricity, like appointing his horse a senator, proclaiming himself a god, or attacking the sea god Neptune, spread widely, making him a symbol of decadence. However, modern scholars argue that this image may have been exaggerated. Suetonius and Dio wrote about Caligula years after his death, during a time when later emperors sought to legitimize their rule by vilifying their predecessors. Some suggest Caligula wasn't entirely mad, but rather a young, inexperienced ruler shaped by childhood trauma, losing his father, seeing his mother and brothers exiled, and growing up under Tiberius's scrutiny on the decadent island of Capri. His cruelty may have been a means to assert power in a court rife with intrigue, where he lived in constant fear and loss. Whether true or not, Caligula's reign serves as a warning about the dangers of absolute power. He inherited an empire built by Augustus and maintained by Tiberius. But his unstable mind and actions shook its foundations. Rome's treasury was depleted, the provinces grew restless, and the military's loyalty wavered. Yet, his death also offered Rome a chance to recover. Claudius, the unexpected emperor, would bring reforms and expand the empire, defying all expectations. Caligula's short reign was a costly lesson. Unchecked power can turn a king into a monster, and a mighty empire into a prey of chaos. Let's reflect on Caligula's journey, from a promising young man bearing the blood of Germanicus and Augustus to a tyrant overthrown by his own people. He became a symbol of the Julio-Claudian dynasty's decline, a testament to the fragility of Augustus's legacy. But Rome's story doesn't end here. Claudius, the overlooked emperor, now faces the task of saving the empire. Can he restore Pax Romana, or will Rome sink deeper into darkness? Join us in the next chapter as we explore Claudius's reign and the new challenges facing the Roman Empire. Caligula's story has come to a close, but Rome remains fraught with challenges. Claudius, the overlooked emperor, now faces an empire in turmoil. Can he prove his worth? Let's step into Claudius's journey, 0.5. As the sun set over the city of Rome in 41 AD, Caligula's death closed a turbulent chapter in the empire's history. From a young man carrying the blood of Germanicus and Augustus, Caligula ascended the throne with the hopes of an entire nation. But just 4 years later, he left the world in blood and hatred, assassinated by those who once swore loyalty to him. His reign, though brief, left an indelible mark that serves as both a warning and a testament to the fragility of power. In this conclusion, we will look back on Caligula's journey, analyze his controversial legacy, and ask, was he a mad tyrant or merely a victim of a system riddled with intrigue? Welcome to the final part, Lessons from Caligula's Reign. Let's revisit Caligula's starting point. In 37 AD, Rome longed for an emperor who could restore the golden age of Pax Romana, the era Augustus had built and Tiberius had struggled to maintain. Caligula, with his father Germanicus's reputation and royal blood, seemed the perfect choice. His early months were promising. He lowered taxes, granted amnesty to prisoners, and brought joy to the people through lavish festivals. But a mysterious illness in late 37 AD changed everything. Caligula became cruel, eccentric, and wasteful, turning Rome into a stage of fear. He proclaimed himself a god, executed without trial, and squandered the empire's treasury on mad schemes. Stories like appointing his horse Incitatus as a senator or attacking the sea god Neptune became symbols of his downfall, though they may have been exaggerated by his enemies. Caligula's reign exemplifies the dangers of absolute power. Augustus had established a system centered on the emperor, but it only worked when the ruler was sane and adept. Tiberius, though harsh, maintained stability. Caligula, with an unstable mind and youthful inexperience, pushed that system to the brink. He squandered resources, depleted Rome's treasury, and sowed discontent among both the people and the elite. His cruel executions, without trial, asset seizures, and Senate humiliations created an atmosphere of fear where loyalty turned to hatred. The provinces, though less directly affected, felt the unrest through higher taxes and erratic policies. Caligula's reign was a significant crack in the perfect picture Augustus had painted, revealing that Pax Romana was more fragile than anyone thought. But was Caligula truly as mad as history portrays him? This question has sparked debate among scholars for centuries. The primary sources on him, like the works of Suetonius and Cassius Dio, were written years after his death, during a time when later emperors sought to bolster their legitimacy by defaming predecessors. Some tales, like the horse senator story, may have been exaggerated mockery. Modern scholars suggest Caligula may have been shaped by childhood, trauma-losing his father, seeing his mother and brothers exiled, and growing up under Tiberius's watchful eye on Capri, a place of decadence and intrigue. He may not have been mad, but rather a young, inexperienced ruler caught in a power struggle. Nevertheless, his cruelty and wastefulness are undeniable. He failed to maintain the empire's stability, and his death was the inevitable result of his mistakes. Though tragic, Caligula's death in 41 AD opened a new chapter for Rome. It not only ended a chaotic reign, but also laid the groundwork for Claudius, Caligula's uncle, to rise. Claudius, long dismissed for his disabilities, was unexpectedly thrust onto the throne by the Praetorian Guard. Under Claudius's rule, Rome would regain stability, with administrative reforms and territorial expansions, particularly the conquest of Britannia. But Caligula's story offers a profound lesson. Power, if unchecked, can turn a king into a monster, and a mighty empire into a target of chaos. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, built by Augustus, was showing cracks, and Caligula was the clearest evidence of its decline. Looking further, Caligula's impact on Roman history is undeniable. Though his reign was a failure, it highlighted the importance of a stable governing system. Later emperors, like Claudius and Trajan, would learn from Caligula's mistakes, focusing on reform and expansion rather than extravagance and cruelty. But Caligula's greatest lesson transcends Rome, resonating through history. Absolute power, when wielded by an unstable ruler, can lead to disaster. Caligula's image as a mad tyrant has become a cultural icon, from history books to films, reminding us of the cost of corruption. As we close Caligula's story, a question lingers. Was he a madman, or merely a victim of his era? Where will Rome go after his death? Can Claudius, the unexpected emperor, save the empire? Or will the Julio-Claudian dynasty sink deeper into darkness? Join us as we explore the next chapter, where Claudius's reign offers a new hope for Rome. What do you think of Caligula? Does he deserve his reputation as a mad tyrant, or has history been too harsh? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to continue our journey through ancient Rome from Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, Augustus, to Tiberius. Thank you for joining us. See you in Claudius's story. Caligula's story has ended, but Rome remains full of challenges. Claudius, the overlooked emperor, now faces an empire in turmoil. Can he prove his worth? Let's step into Claudius's journey. Rome in 41 AD, the Eternal City was shaken by Caligula's death. The young emperor, once expected to carry forward Augustus's legacy, had left the world in blood and hatred. assassinated by the Praetorian Guard after 4 years of chaotic rule. Caligula's reign was a nightmare. His cruelty, eccentricity, and wastefulness drained the treasury, sparked discontent among the people, and shook the foundations of Pax Romana. As he fell, Rome stood at a critical juncture. Some senators dreamed of restoring the Republic, but the emperor's power was too deeply entrenched. Amid this chaos, an unlikely man ascended the throne, Claudius, Caligula's uncle, a man the entire court had dismissed. Welcome to a new chapter in ancient Rome, the journey of Claudius, the unexpected emperor. Claudius, or Tiberius Claudius Nero Germanicus, was born in 10 BC in Lugdunum, modern-day Lyon, France. He was the son of Drusus, Tiberius's younger brother, and Antonia Minor, Augustus's niece. As a member of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, Claudius carried royal blood, but he was never considered a candidate for the throne. From childhood, Claudius was scorned for his physical disabilities. He limped, stuttered, and trembled frequently. His own family, including his mother Antonia, called him a freak, a disgrace to the dynasty. Caligula, during his reign, often mocked him, making him the court's laughingstock. But this disdain saved Claudius's life. While other family members were purged under Tiberius and Caligula, Claudius was left alone, as no one saw him as a threat. Claudius grew up in the shadows, but he was far from useless. He spent his time studying history, writing books on Rome and the Etruscans, and observing politics from a distance. He understood the intricacies of the court, but kept himself safe, steering clear of intrigue. When Caligula was assassinated on January 24, 41 AD, Claudius, then 50, was at Palatine Hill. Amid the chaos, he hid behind a curtain, fearing he'd be the next target. But the Praetorian Guard, the force that killed Caligula, found him. Recognizing that Rome needed an emperor to maintain order, they proclaimed Claudius emperor, presenting him to the army and the people. The Senate, though initially opposed, eventually accepted him. Claudius became the first emperor directly placed on the throne by the military, a precedent that would shape Rome's future. Claudius's ascension shocked the empire. No one believed this man, deemed weak, could rule a Rome in disarray. The treasury was depleted after Caligula's extravagance. The provinces were restless due to high taxes, and the aristocracy remained divided after years of chaos. But Claudius was no ordinary man. Despite his frail appearance, he possessed a sharp intellect and a strong will. He knew that to survive, he had to prove his worth. One of his first acts was to generously reward the Praetorian Guard, securing their loyalty. He also ordered an investigation into Caligula's assassination, executing key conspirators like Cassius Chaerea, but granting amnesty to others to ease tensions. The challenges Claudius faced were immense. Augustus's legacy, once Rome's shining light, had been dimmed by Tiberius and severely damaged by Caligula. Pax Romana, the era of peace Augustus had established, was faltering amid internal unrest and external pressures. The northern provinces, like Germania and Britannia, remained threats, while eastern provinces, like Judea, were discontented due to Caligula's religious policies. Rome's treasury needed restoration, and public trust had to be rebuilt. Claudius, despite his physical limitations, had to prove he was not just a temporary emperor, but a true ruler capable of saving the empire. Imagine Rome in 41 AD, a city just emerging from Caligula's nightmare, yet still scarred. The Roman Forum, once echoing with cheers for Caligula, now buzzed with whispers about Claudius. The people were curious, the aristocracy skeptical, and the army expectant. Claudius, with his limp and stuttering speech, stepped onto the throne amid scrutinizing gazes. Could he bring stability to Rome, or would his reign be the next chapter in the Julio-Claudian decline? Claudius's story is one of unexpected triumph, from a disregarded man to an emperor who left a profound mark on history. Let's await the next chapter, where we explore Claudius's reforms, victories, and tragedies. Claudius ascended the throne amid the empire's doubts, but he refused to let prejudice stop him. Could this emperor restore the glory of Pax Romana? Let's explore his reign, where great reforms and victories were forged. Rome in 41 AD. The mighty empire stood on the brink of instability after Caligula's death. The treasury was depleted, the people were discontented, and the aristocracy was divided after 4 years of chaos under the brutal emperor. Amid this turmoil, Claudius, a 50-year-old man dismissed by the entire court, ascended the throne with the support of the Praetorian Guard. With a limp, a stuttering voice, and a trembling body, Claudius seemed the least likely choice for Rome's throne. But behind this frail exterior lay a sharp intellect, a strong will, and a vision far beyond what anyone could imagine. Claudius's reign would prove that he was not a temporary emperor, but a great ruler who brought stability and expanded the empire. This is a new chapter in Rome, the rise of Claudius. From the start, Claudius faced immense skepticism. The Senate, though forced to accept him, doubted that a man labeled a freak could govern a vast empire. The people, scarred by Caligula's cruelty, viewed Claudius with a mix of curiosity and doubt, but Claudius refused to let mockery shake his resolve. He knew that to survive, he had to act swiftly and prove his worth. One of his first decisions was to lavishly reward the Praetorian Guard, who had placed him on the throne. This move not only secured the military's loyalty, but also sent a clear message. Claudius was no puppet, but an emperor who knew how to consolidate power. One of Claudius's greatest challenges was restoring stability to Rome after Caligula's reign. The empire's treasury was nearly empty due to his predecessor's extravagance. Caligula had spent recklessly, hosting lavish festivals and building impractical projects like the floating bridge across the Bay of Baiae. To address this, Claudius implemented careful financial reforms. He cut unnecessary expenditures, improved tax management, and encouraged trade to revive the economy. He also ordered an audit of national assets, ensuring the treasury was used efficiently. Under Claudius's management, Rome gradually regained economic stability, feat no one expected from a disregarded emperor. Claudius also focused on administrative reform, an area where he left a lasting mark. He recognized that Rome's governing system, though established by Augustus, had weakened after the instability under Tiberius and Caligula. To enhance efficiency, Claudius created a centralized bureaucracy, including secretaries and advisors, to assist him in managing the empire. He prioritized appointing capable individuals, regardless of their background. Many freedmen, such as Narcissus and Pallas, were entrusted by Claudius with key roles, a controversial but effective decision. Narcissus, as his personal secretary, helped Claudius manage finances and diplomacy, while Pallas oversaw the treasury. Though criticized by the aristocracy for relying on former slaves, Claudius ignored the gossip. He knew that to govern a vast empire, he needed loyal and talented individuals, not those who merely relied on family prestige. One of Claudius's greatest achievements was the conquest of Britannia, a military campaign that marked a turning point in Roman history. Before him, Julius Caesar had invaded Britannia in 55 and 54 BC, but his efforts left no lasting impact. Under Augustus and Tiberius, Rome focused on consolidating borders rather than expanding territory. But Claudius, eager to prove his worth, decided to conquer this distant land. In 43 AD, he sent 4 legions, about 40 soldiers under General Aulus Plautius to Britannia. The conquest was far from easy. Native tribes like the Catuvellani and Iceni resisted fiercely, but the Roman army, with superior discipline and tactics, gradually gained the upper hand. Claudius even traveled to Britannia to oversee the campaign's final stages, a symbolic act to assert his authority. He stayed for 16 days, witnessing the Roman army capture Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester, and establish a new province. The conquest of Britannia was not just a military victory, but a political triumph. It brought abundant resources, like tin and gold, helping to replenish Rome's treasury. More importantly, the victory boosted Claudius's prestige among the people and the military. The Senate granted him the title Britannicus, and a triumphal ceremony was held in Rome, where Claudius paraded through the forum with a victor's crown. The Britannia campaign also expanded Rome's borders, making the empire an unstoppable force. However, the conquest came at a cost. Native tribes continued to rebel, and Rome had to maintain a strong military presence to control the new territory. But for Claudius, Britannia was proof of his leadership, a resounding response to those who had doubted him. Beyond Britannia, Claudius strengthened Rome's borders in other provinces. He annexed Mauritania, modern-day Morocco and Algeria, turning it into 2 new provinces. In the east, he improved relations with Judea, reversing Caligula's harsh religious policies. Claudius allowed the Jews to freely practice their religion and appointed Agrippa I, Herod the Great's grandson, as king of Judea, decision that eased tensions in the region. He also expanded Rome's road and port systems, boosting trade from Egypt to Gaul, ensuring that Rome was not just a military empire, but a hub of economic and cultural activity. Yet Claudius's reign was not without challenges. He faced numerous conspiracies from the aristocracy, who resented his reliance on freedmen like Narcissus and Pallas. Some senators even plotted to overthrow him, but Claudius, thanks to an effective intelligence network, uncovered and quashed these rebellions before they could erupt. His family life was also a source of tragedy. In 48 AD, his wife Messalina was discovered plotting treason with a nobleman named Gaius Silius. Known for her debauchery, Messalina had staged a mock wedding with Silius while Claudius was absent. When the plot was exposed, Messalina was executed, leaving Claudius in deep pain and loneliness. Later, he married Agrippina the Younger, Caligula's sister. But this marriage would lead to new tragedies in the future. Claudius's reign stood in stark contrast to Caligula's. While Caligula brought chaos, Claudius brought stability. While Caligula was wasteful and cruel, Claudius reformed and expanded. He proved that a ruler didn't need a perfect appearance or the aristocracy's approval to succeed. His intelligence, patience, and vision saved Rome from the brink of collapse, laying the groundwork for great emperors like Trajan. But Claudius's story doesn't end here. His final years would be overshadowed by family intrigue, particularly from Agrippina and her son Nero. Could Claudius maintain the stability he had worked so hard to build? Let's await the next chapter. Claudius brought light to Rome, but the darkness from his family grew ever thicker. Would Agrippina's schemes destroy his legacy? Let's explore Claudius's final years and his mysterious death. Rome in 54 AD. The Eternal City was enjoying a rare period of stability under Claudius's reign. From a man dismissed for his disabilities, Claudius had proven himself one of the most capable emperors of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. He restored Rome's treasury, expanded the empire with the conquest of Britannia, and reformed the administration to manage a vast empire. Pax Romana, the golden era Augustus had created, seemed to have been revived by Claudius after the chaotic reigns of Tiberius and Caligula. But that light wouldn't last forever. Claudius's final years were overshadowed by family intrigue, particularly from his last wife, Agrippina the Younger. His mysterious death would pave the way for Nero's rise, an emperor who would lead the Julio-Claudian dynasty down a path of ruin. This is the final chapter of Claudius's story, a tragic end and the beginning of new chaos. Claudius's final years were a time of both brilliance and turmoil. He left a cultural legacy with public works like the Aqua Claudia aqueduct, an engineering marvel that brought clean water to Rome, serving millions. Claudius, with his passion for history, continued writing books, documenting Rome and the Etruscans, leaving an intellectual legacy few emperors could match. Despite his physical disabilities, limping, stuttering, and trembling, Claudius proved that intelligence and will could overcome prejudice. But that same intelligence couldn't shield him from the dangers within his own family, the greatest source of tragedy in his life. Family had always been a source of sorrow for Claudius. In 48 AD, he faced a major scandal when his third wife, Messalina, was found plotting treason. Known for her debauchery, Messalina had staged a mock wedding with Gaius Silius, a young noble, while Claudius was away. This was not just personal betrayal, but a political threat, as Silius could have used it to overthrow Claudius. When the plot was uncovered, Messalina was executed, leaving Claudius in profound grief. He had deeply loved Messalina, and they had two children, Britannicus, Claudius's only son, and Octavia. Messalina's death left Claudius lonely and vulnerable, a weakness others would exploit. In 49 AD, Claudius married for the fourth time to Agrippina the Younger, Caligula's sister and his own niece. Agrippina was an ambitious, intelligent, and ruthless woman. The daughter of Germanicus and Agrippina the Elder, she carried Augustus's royal blood. Agrippina had endured hardship under Tiberius and Caligula, having been exiled for allegedly plotting against her brother. After Caligula's death, she returned to Rome, bringing with her a son from a previous marriage, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, known as Nero. Agrippina was determined to see Nero on the throne, and Claudius, despite his intelligence, fell into her trap. Agrippina quickly consolidated her power in the court. She persuaded Claudius to adopt Nero, placing him on equal footing with Britannicus, Claudius's biological son. Agrippina ensured Nero was educated by Seneca, a renowned philosopher, and prepared to become emperor. Meanwhile, Britannicus, though the legitimate heir, was sidelined by Agrippina. She spread rumors that Britannicus was unfit to rule, while elevating Nero as the ideal successor. Claudius, though he loved Britannicus, seemed unaware of Agrippina's danger. Some historians believe he was completely manipulated by Agrippina, while others argue he deliberately chose Nero, believing Nero, with Agrippina's support, could ensure the dynasty's stability. But Agrippina didn't stop there. She began eliminating anyone who might threaten her plans. Claudius's trusted advisors, like Narcissus, were isolated by Agrippina. Narcissus, who had helped Claudius govern the empire, was accused of corruption and died shortly after, possibly poisoned. Agrippina also closely monitored the court, ensuring every decision served her and Nero's interests. Claudius, though aware of Agrippina's ambition, seemed powerless to stop her. Some sources suggest that in his final years, Claudius grew concerned for Britannicus's future and intended to revise his will to favor his biological son. But Agrippina, with her network of spies, learned of this. She decided to act before Claudius could change his plans. On October 13, 54 AD, Claudius died suddenly in the palace in Rome at the age of 63. His death immediately sparked controversy. Ancient historians like Tacitus and Suetonius claim Claudius was poisoned by Agrippina. According to Tacitus, Agrippina laced Claudius's favorite dish with poisonous mushrooms during a feast. When Claudius showed signs of poisoning, Agrippina ordered her loyal physician, Xenophon, to pretend to help. Xenophon inserted a poisoned feather into Claudius's throat, ostensibly to induce vomiting, but in reality to ensure his death. While this story is dramatic and possibly exaggerated, it reflects the Roman people's suspicion of Agrippina. Some modern scholars suggest Claudius may have died of natural causes, as he was elderly and in poor health. However, the timing of his death right before he could revise his will makes the poisoning theory more plausible. Agrippina concealed Claudius's death for hours. She ordered the palace sealed, claiming Claudius was still alive and recovering. During this time, she prepared for Nero's ascension. She ensured the Praetorian Guard and Senate supported Nero, using her influence and Seneca's assistance to control the situation. By the evening of October 13, Agrippina announced Claudius's death and declared Nero, then 16, the new emperor. Britannicus, only 13, was sidelined. Agrippina organized a grand funeral for Claudius, and he was deified, a fitting honor for his contributions. But behind the reverence lay a harsh reality. Agrippina, not Nero, held true power. Nero's rise marked a dangerous turning point for Rome. Initially, his reign began with promise. Guided by Seneca and Burrus, the Praetorian Guard commander, Nero enacted moderate policies, lowered taxes, and hosted festivals to win the people's favor. But Agrippina, eager to control her son, exerted immense pressure on Nero. She appeared on coins alongside Nero, an unprecedented act for an empress mother, and meddled in political decisions. However, Nero, with his arrogance and instability, began to resist his mother. In the years that followed, Nero would break free of Agrippina's control, descending into a path of extravagance, cruelty, and madness, leading the Julio-Claudian dynasty to its collapse. Let's reflect on Claudius's reign. He saved Rome from Caligula's darkness, bringing stability and expanding the empire. But his death, whether natural or by poison, was a tragedy. He couldn't protect his son Britannicus or stop Agrippina from placing Nero on the throne. Nero, with his unstable mind, would become the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, plunging Rome into a dark era with the Great Fire of 64 AD and the People's Revolt. Claudius's story is a testament to the power of intelligence and will, but also a reminder that even a great emperor cannot control fate. Could Nero uphold Claudius's legacy, or would Rome fall into deeper darkness? Let's await the next chapter. Claudius's death closed the chapter on a great emperor, but opened a dark new era with Nero's rise. What kind of ruler will Nero become, and can Rome survive his reign? Let's uncover the next chapter of this epic saga. Claudius, from a man dismissed for his disabilities, rose to become one of the greatest emperors of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. He restored stability to Rome after Caligula's chaos, expanded the empire with the conquest of Britannia, and reformed the administration to govern a vast realm. Despite his physical limitations, His intelligence and determination overcame all prejudice, bringing a rare period of stability to Rome. But his mysterious death in 54 AD leaves many questions unanswered. Did Agrippina truly poison Claudius to secure Nero's throne? Or was he simply a victim of natural illness? What will become of Britannicus, Claudius's biological son, now sidelined by Agrippina? And Nero, the young emperor under Seneca's guidance and Agrippina's control, what path will he take? At first, Nero's reign shows promise, but early signs of trouble are emerging. His arrogance, extravagance, and strained relationship with Agrippina. A great tragedy awaits Rome. The Great Fire of 64 AD, Nero's brutal acts, and the eventual collapse of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Can Rome survive this new nightmare, or will the empire descend into chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Claudius was poisoned? And what kind of emperor will Nero be? Don't forget to subscribe to continue our journey through ancient Rome.